Was this a sneaky good deal for the Toronto Blue Jays?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. As usual, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Wasco, Carter First too as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. Also, if you haven't dropped a subscription here on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it. It's free to do so. You might as well. It helps us. It keeps us the top of your guys' page. If you're listening anywhere else, you can go onto YouTube, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so you're updated whenever we go live or post a short, anything like that as well. So make sure you guys are all tuned in for the off season of Toronto Blue Jays here. Some stuff to get to today. First of all, talking about the Ryan Yarbrough trade and sort of how that, looks now after we've had some time to sit with some of the trades. We're going to talk game length because just sometimes like yesterday's game just felt like it took 9 years off my life. A little bit of the umpire calls there from, I guess that would have been Tuesday, Carter, that I want to get into. And just a whole bunch more stuff just on the game as well. So a ton to get into today, Carter. But let's start something off with a guy that you wanted to talk about today, and that's Ryan Yarbrough.
This is a trade for me that going over this trade deadline, it's probably like this was my nothing burger almost. It was one of those things that I wasn't necessarily worried about. Like, we get something for Kevin Kiermaier, great. As opposed to the bullpen, it can't get worse, right? So we get Ryan Yarbrough. You looked at his season stats, it wasn't necessarily that bad. He had like a 4 ERA. He's been a guy that can go in literally any situation ever. He can be a long relief man. He can go 5 innings as an opener. He can go in the 7th inning, as you saw in this last game of the Toronto Blue Jays game. This guy can go pretty much anywhere. You don't necessarily want him being your closer, but if you ask him to do that, he could probably find a way to at least be somewhat effective for your baseball team. So I just wanted to compare Ryan Yarbrough for what Kevin Kiermaier is, what he was before going to the Dodgers, and what he is right now playing on the Dodgers. So we'll start with Ryan Yarbrough. I'm not going to get into today's game too much. We're going to stick with that for more so the second segment. But Ryan Yarbrough with the Toronto Blue Jays, a 2.49 ERA, 21.2 innings pitched, 12 hits given up, only 6 of those being six earned runs, 14 strikeouts to 6 walks. He's just efficient. A 1.64 ERA plus. When Ryan Yarbrough came here, this was a trade that I didn't necessarily take seriously, and I'm still not taking seriously. And I started to kind of do a little bit of a self-assessment here. I'm like, why am I not being more excited about Ryan Yarbrough? This guy has a sub-2 ERA since coming to the Toronto Blue Jays. We're needing a bullpen arms. We're needing long relief. We talked about it on this podcast. We both said that we don't think Ryan Yarbrough is going to come back to the Toronto Blue Jays. For me now, it just depends how much money this guy wants. If he wants something like $8 to $9 million, even less than that, why not have Ryan Yarbrough come back? He's a lefty. He's a guy that is a Swiss Army knife. You can throw him anywhere in the bullpen. And when you just look back at this trade, we knew what Kevin Kiermaier was from what we saw in the first 100 or so games of Kevin Kiermaier this season. You can tell age is catching up to him a little bit. At this point in his career, he's pretty much a defensive substitution. So one of the reasons the offense struggled so mightily, not obviously entirely on Kevin Kiermaier, but he did not help hitting like 180, having an OPS plus of about 40. It's not going to do numbers for your team. You look right now, you look at what some of these prospects are doing, a lot more upside there, playing a little bit worse defense. But again, you work out some of those growing pains. If you're going to get some more upside on this baseball team, which is exactly what you need, this is a very good trade in retrospect. You get bullpen help, and then you allow these prospects to start playing at the major league level. And you got to see what these guys actually have in the tank for you. So to end this thing off with this Kevin Kiermaier, Ryan Yarbrough stuff, and then I'll kind of throw it back over to you. Just wanted to go over Kevin Kiermaier and what he has done with the Los Angeles Dodgers since he got traded over there. He's got a 167 average, a 196 OBP, a slugging of 278. OPS plus of 34. Not too many good stats going on here. I can go into the strikeouts. I can go into the walks. Kevin Kiermaier is a defensive substitution. the Los Angeles Dodgers are going to need a very good defender, as they are up in baseball games all the time. They have a lot of other players and a lot of other pitchers that are going to be good enough. They didn't necessarily need Ryan Yarbrough. And when you have hitters like Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Will Smith, you can keep going down the list, Freddie Freeman, you're not going to have to rely on Kevin Kiermaier's bat. And that's the biggest mistake the Toronto Blue Jays did, is they sort of had to rely on Kevin Kiermaier's bat for this offense to be effective, to get production from the top of the order, the middle of the order, and the bottom of the order. So that's a mistake on the Blue Jays' part. This is a little bit, it seems like a shot at Kevin Kiermaier, but not really. If I'm Kevin Kiermaier, I'm getting the bag. You can't really fault him for that. One of the highest paid contracts that he's gotten in his career. If we're in that situation, we're doing the same thing. This is the mismanagement of the Toronto Blue Jays. But looking back at it, Ryan Yarbrough has been an absolute dog for the Toronto Blue Jays. And this is a trade that is probably going to go down from this trade deadline as one of the better ones for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, Carter, and we always talk about the need for bullpen arms, and it's league wide right now, and that's one of the things that if you can get Ryan Yarbrough on a fairly cheap contract, you're not going to get anybody for much cheaper than $8 or $9 million in this offseason. So if Ryan Yarbrough is that option for around there or less, I think you got to pull the trigger here. Bullpen arms are at a premium. There's not going to be a ton of great free agent arms in the bullpen. So it's a guy to look at for sure. And that's going to have to be a decision made on this Toronto Blue Jays management team. If this is a guy they want to pursue, what's the contract look like? This is going to be the off season of contracts. And we're going to talk way more about Vlad and Bo's coming up, what they deserve, what we think that they'll get, everything like that. But you sometimes do forget about these players like the Ryan Yarbroughs, who, if you can get on a fairly cheap contract, might be a great addition for, like you said, the Swiss Army knife of a bullpen spot. So again, I love this trade. Looking back at it, when this trade sort of happened, I was thinking, oh, whatever, it's Kevin Kiermaier. They're going to just throw somebody out there. But obviously, Ross Atkins does know what he's doing when it comes to trades. And look, this has worked out in his favor. So we'll see. I mean, if you can't pull the trigger on a deal with Ryan Yarbrough for next season, then it is sort of whatever. It's just the guy that you get for this year. It doesn't really matter. But we'll see sort of where this takes us, Carter. And looking back at Kevin Kiermaier again, I always say it, just a hell of a guy, very liked in the Blue Jays organization by the fans, everything. I think he was a great person. Just is coming to the end of his baseball career. And, obviously he doesn't have a ton of time left. So, yeah, he's a defensive substitution. It was what it was. A move had to be made for him. You got to hope for something, and that's what the Blue Jays did. So, I guess hat tips to them for this trade deadline once again.
Yeah, no matter what, the way you look at least the Ryan Yarbrough trade, that's a W for the Toronto Blue Jays. You had no use for Kevin Kiermaier on your team. You're literally just stealing at bats. And you definitely had a use for Ryan Yarbrough. Maybe you do sign him now to an extension in the offseason. Even if you don't, you just did a 1-for-1 Ryan Yarbrough for Kevin Kiermaier. I'm going to take that every day of the week. Imagine if the Toronto Blue Jays were actually in contention. Somehow they swung that Ryan Yarbrough and Kevin Kiermaier trade. I think this move would have been talked about probably a lot more going down the stretch. But when you're a million games under 500 out of playoff contention for a very long time, it's kind of tough to get excited about the trade deadline moves, especially when it's MLB talent that you could say are probably out of their primes. Ryan Yarbrough being 32, I think it's unfair to say that the best is ahead of him, especially once you get to that clip. Not saying Ryan Yarbrough can't be effective, but you see pitchers right now. You look at David Robertson going in this last game, the Toronto Blue Jays absolutely putting in the work against them. I think he's 39 years old. So when you're a pitcher, you usually can stay around for a little bit longer, but you get Ryan Yarbrough for a guy like Kevin Kiermaier, definitely a good move at the deadline. This guy, again, just want to go over just how effective this guy can be and why he is so effective in every single role. Because this guy has an arsenal of a starting pitcher. He has 5 pitches: curveball, sinker, 4-seam, changeup, cutter. And his delivery is very wide out to the left side. So that arm slot definitely keeps hitters uncomfortable at the plate. You don't see that arm slot a lot from MLB players right now. A lot of people just focus on velo. You don't get a lot of those submarine guys anymore, the guys with the interesting arm slots to throw hitters' visuals off. So I'm not sure if I want them to sign Ryan Yarbrough. I'm definitely that's something you got to look into. I'm not a huge contract guy, especially with the relievers and the open market that's going to be free agency this season. Maybe he commands less than that. I think you probably want to get Ryan Yarbrough on a deal that's less than that because you want to get a high leverage reliever. Ryan Yarbrough, probably not that guy. So there's a lot of things that the Toronto Blue Jays could do. But for what Ryan Yarbrough has done for the Toronto Blue Jays this season, I think you'd be idiotic to not at least bark up that tree and see what he'd be demanding for a contract in the next season.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, there's lots of pieces, a lot of moving pieces that have to go into this offseason. Who signs where? Is there going to have to be moves? Is there going to have to be, who are they going to sign? There's so much to think about. And we'll get all those ideas out to you guys in the next, coming bit here as the season winds down for the Toronto Blue Jays. But Carter, in saying that,
I've got one more thing before we do head into the segment break. So we talked about this trade deadline. We talked about how good of a trade this was. Where does this rank for your trade deadline deals? Obviously, we were very high on the IKF Charles McAdoo one. You got to go over the Yusei Kikuchi one. A lot of good trades here, some nothing burgers, some big bombs. Where do you have this ranking in your trade deadline rankings here for the trades?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be number 3. I mean, you got to think about getting a guy like Will Wagner. I mean, he's just going to outperform him, and maybe not, but at least the getting a high touted prospect in Will Wagner is so huge. Jake Bloss, I mean, and that's not even talking about Joey Lopervito. Then you go to the the next one with obviously Charles McAdoo, and again, it's the prospect you're hoping for more. And Ryan Yarbrough, like you said, isn't necessarily on the way out, but isn't in the prime of his career either. So we'll have to wait and see. I think this is going to be a bigger question for next year and the following year to see what happens with Ryan Yarbrough. I mean, if he doesn't re-sign for cheap, then it's sort of a nothing burger because it didn't really matter. This season doesn't matter. So this was more so building for next year. So if that building for next year piece is Ryan Yarbrough signing again and, continuing on the pace he's continuing, then maybe there's a different discussion to have.
It's hard to recap trade deadline deals when it's been a month and a half since the trade deadline, especially when all the other trades are prospects and Ryan Yarbrough is the only MLB talent that you did end up getting. Right now, I think you got to have him between probably the 2 and 4 slot. I like the Jonathan Colossi trade for the Yimi Garcia one. You get a good prospect there. And RJ Schreck has actually looked really good in AA as well for Justin Turner. Again, it's very early on. These guys have literally no MLB experience. A lot harder of a league in the MLB, obviously, than the leagues of AAA, AA, and so far down the list. So for me, if I had to put a ranking on, I'd probably go 3 as well. I think you have to go Yusei Kikuchi one at this point for what you've seen for the very early rankings, and then probably Charles McAdoo at that 2 spot. With Ryan Yarbrough, again, it's if he doesn't sign back, again, you can look at this a million different ways. You can look at this from the aspect of who is going to be the best player to play on the Toronto Blue Jays from these trade deadlines. Ryan Yarbrough might end up being that. Again, knock on wood, you don't want Ryan Yarbrough to be the best player you got in this trade deadline, but for straight value, might be the best. But when you look for it at this trade deadline from a future perspective, probably can't say Ryan Yarbrough's that up there. If you look at it from the future, you probably put it down to like 6 or 7. You probably put it down to 8 if you only get this season out of Ryan Yarbrough. So again, there's a ton of different lenses and perspectives you can have on this. But Ryan Yarbrough, for what we've gotten in 2024 from the guy, for what we got from Kevin Kiermaier, in fact, we got anything for Kevin Kiermaier, definitely a win for the Toronto Blue Jays. And when you don't give Ross Atkins a lot of credit for things, had a pretty good trade deadline, but it was his fault we were in this situation anyway. So I pick up Ross Atkins and just got to shove him back down a little bit because this is the reason why we are in Toronto Blue Jays hell in September, and we're not fighting for a playoff spot like a lot of these other teams. One thing I just want to quickly say as well, I think it's nice that we have a bunch of teams that are not in the playoffs, because hearing about these wild card races just makes me depressed. I get sad hearing about, the Mets won, the Braves won, whatever. You got the Tigers going on a insanity run. I actually hope they make it in. But I don't want to hear about this stuff. It makes me sad hearing that the Toronto Blue Jays aren't even in the mix for playoff baseball, and they haven't even been in the mix for the last month.
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? I mean, but we've known we were going to be in this position, which is, I think maybe makes
it
worse.
It any easier. Yeah, it doesn't make it any easier.
It's different maybe if you're, you come up a game shy or 2 games shy, at least you're fighting tooth and nail to the end of the season. This is like, you might as well turn the TV off because, now you're just hoping that Davis Schneider hits a home run or, Leo Jimenez has a good day or Ernie Clement goes 5 for 5 or something. Or seeing Vlad just pump the baseball, but there isn't a lot to be excited for. And we've known that for a while. So that's why we're going to, obviously in the next coming days, weeks, months, take a huge look at the off season, what's coming up, but we do have a game to go over and we're not going to necessarily go over it completely. It was a nothing game. It was terrible. We'll get into it. there's one big thing that came out of this game for me that just made me realize how frustrating it was to watch the Blue Jays when they're just not playing well. So we'll get into all that right after this break.
Today's episode is sponsored by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Gretzky or Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value and a complete view of all possible cards and clear hit rates for each one. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale providing an explanation of how your card was scored. I used this grading process on the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. rookie card that I talked about in the last episode. They made this grading very easy. It's very cheap, and now I can sit on this Vladimir Guerrero Jr. card. Hopefully it takes me to the moon, and hopefully it takes the Toronto Blue Jays to the moon as well. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to the arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB. Code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase.
Sorry, big guy. I was a little bit slow on the trigger there.
Oh, I had a little bit of a tongue twister there too. Obviously, a new ad. I do love collecting cards. Obviously, we've been collecting cards for as long as we can remember. Been stealing my dad's cards for a while, just adding to my own collection. So it's nice to get some ads that you actually have been using, and it's fun to talk about. But we do have some other things to talk about as well, and that is the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm going to lead it off with this. We do this big episode. We kind of get hyped up about it. Bo Bichette comes back. We're fired up. See a game. He goes 2 for 5. Bo Bichette's in the lineup. What is it? An hour before the game. Bo Bichette is a scratch just before game time. And that's Toronto Blue Jays baseball of 2024. You get excited about one thing for one day, and then the next day, it's just all ripped away from you. So I got a million different perspectives on this. We got tweets, reports, whatever. I'll do the Ben Nicholson-Smith one. We'll give him, I guess, his flowers today. Bo Bichette took a ground ball off his right middle finger during pregame warmups today. He went for x-rays. No results yet. Jays manager John Schneider says Bichette likely out for tomorrow. Then go from there. Is this guy Joey Votto reincarnated? Is this what we're doing right now? Just unfortunately for Bo Bichette, things clearly have not gone your way. Said it in the last episode. I love watching Bo Bichette play baseball, but 2024, just hang him up for 2024, Bo. Things aren't going your way. I don't know. You're gonna get unlucky for the foreseeable future for the next 11 games. It's seeming like 10 games now. Just hang him up for 2024. Go into the offseason. Make sure you're healthy. Ride this finger injury out, whatever it is. I don't care if you're hurt, you're not hurt. I love watching you play baseball, but we need you for 2025. It's 2024, not the year of the Toronto Blue Jays, not the year of Bo Bichette.
We talk about this all the time, and it seems like every second day we're saying there's no reason to have these guys. These games mean nothing. I don't understand. Bo Bichette should not have seen the field for the rest of the season. I get the whole confidence piece, and I talked about that yesterday. Or the day before, whatever day it was. But yeah, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating to see because, like you said, you get excited for one thing and then it's ripped away with no Will Wagner, no Dalton Varsho, no Bo Bichette. And it's just like, oh my goodness, boys, just hang them up. Just wave the white flag already. It's over.
I did see a couple perspectives, which I just want to hear your opinion on it. I got my opinion on this. Some people are, again, it's more almost getting to some conspiracy theory stuff. People are just saying that Bo Bichette is just saying he's injured and he doesn't want to play the rest of the season. Partly the standpoint. People are saying that Bo Bichette doesn't want to be in Toronto, and it's kind of that thing. He wants to be traded in this offseason. Do you have any merit to that whatsoever?
That is complete. I can't use the word I'm wanting to use. No, that's completely untrue and false. I'll say that right now. Bo Bichette's a guy that wants to get the most out of his contract. If he wanted to actually not be in Toronto, he would do everything in his power to play the rest of this year to boost his numbers. So whatever they're saying that, he's just going to ride it out, that is, you're almost coming to the alternate conclusion for what your point is. Bo Bichette, if he's injured, I fully believe that he does want to stay, and he actually wants to win with Vlad. There was a couple clips of him and Vlad sort of chatting and whatever. They want to be together. They really do. And they want to win together. And I fully believe that these two contracts will get done. I think that the quote from Bo Bichette on taking a step back and, reevaluating where he's at is true and honest. And I feel like Bo Bichette is fully in wanting to be a Blue Jay. The piece that I could take away from that is not being rushed back and not playing in meaningless games. And I agree. I don't think he should. I think keep everybody safe and healthy. You want Vlad to play just because he's played well. You don't want to take games away from him. But in the same respect, if he starts going a little bit of a cold streak, just call it. Just call it as well. There's no need to put these guys in any situation that isn't going to help them succeed in the future. But yeah, that is just garbage. I'm not taking nothing away from that.
No, I definitely agree to prioritize the health of Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Just going to quickly go over Vladdy. If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not playing on this baseball team, how do you watch these games? Again, I want Vladimir Guerrero, health is priority, obviously. But if Vladdy's on the lineup, I mean, this we might as well be the Buffalo Bisons here. Yeah. I might as well be the Toronto Blue Jays. Might as well just finish off the last 10 games of the season as the Buffalo Bisons. Going back to the Bo Bichette stuff. If Bo Bichette didn't want to play baseball this year, he just would have stayed on the IL the entire year. He wouldn't want to. There was obviously a pushback. Bo Bichette wanted to play baseball in these last 2 weeks. There was probably trainers, people in the Toronto Blue Jays system, obviously, people in their facilities saying, Bo, you can come back. You're fine. We're not rushing it here. It's up to you. And Bo Bichette probably had the option to be like, hey, I'm just going to ride it out in the offseason. But Bo Bichette loves baseball. You see that in the articles. You can see that, obviously, when he gets mad, the emotion he shows out on the diamond. Bo Bichette wants to be playing baseball. And you could tell in the articles that he missed the guys. Bo Bichette would not just randomly stage a different injury that's saying that, oh, my finger hurts. And it's just not a good look. It's not a good look for Bo Bichette. Again, when you look at this from an outside of baseball fan perspective, you're like, oh, he got a ball in the finger. He has a bruised nail. Come on, just toughen it out. But again, we're at the point where these games don't necessarily matter. Maybe there's more to this than is being reported. There's not too much on the extent of this injury, not a lot of x-ray results and stuff like that. I guess we'll have to stay on point for that and just be ready on the lookout. But Bo Bichette is definitely not lying about being injured. He wants to play baseball. I just wanted to throw this in just as a talking point. I didn't take much merit from it as well. And a lot of people on Twitter were body bagging these guys as well. Not a lot of people on these guys' side, but it's just crazy what some of the Toronto Blue Jays media, how they try to spin some of these stories when they do come out. But let's get into the Toronto Blue Jays game because they actually did play a baseball game. But unfortunately, not too much happened in this game. Just Cody Bradford, just the greatest pitcher of all time. It just seems like that's where we're at.
Yeah, and you know what? There's lots I want to get into.
Bradford, I said Bickford. I keep mixing that up.
Yeah, I know what you meant. I think everybody did. And honestly, who cares? There's so much I want to get into on this game, and I'll save some of it for the third segment here. I think let's finish off this segment with the guy that I think the spotlight was on today. That was Bowden Francis. He goes 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 6 Ks, 1 walk. And this is a start that obviously Bowden Francis didn't have his best stuff. I mean, through, 41 pitches, he threw 5 splitters. Obviously the splitter, he didn't feel confident in that pitch going into this game today. And when that splitter's not working, you see he's having to battle a little bit more. He's having to fight counts. But, he did. He looked pretty good for a guy that you could tell didn't have his stuff. So I really didn't hate the day today from Bowden Francis. Again, not his best stuff. Didn't look amazing. But I think good pitchers find ways to work out on those days when you don't have your best stuff. You're not going to come out every day and have your best stuff. Good pitchers find ways to work out, continue through the game and be good even when you don't bring your best stuff to the ballpark that day. And that's what Bowden Francis did today, Carter.
Yeah, I got a take on this. I'm not sure if this is a hot take. You can kind of let me know about this. I'm taking way more merit from a start where their starting pitcher does not have his best stuff and has to battle through these starts, doesn't have the best conditions on him. I think if everyone has their stuff 100% of the time and you're throwing your best pitches, everyone can be effective in the MLB. You're in the MLB for a reason. I want to see what you can do on your average day, on your worst day. I want to see if you can still be a good baseball player when you don't have your best stuff and still give your team a chance to win baseball games. And that's what Bowden Francis did. You saw a splitter. Wasn't obviously working very well today. Velo was down. Bowden Francis just battled. You go 6 innings, you give up a moonshot to Adolis Garcia, is what it is. You go 6 innings, 2 earned runs any day of the week. This should be a good start for your baseball team. It was a great start for your baseball team. If the Blue Jays win this game 5-2, we're probably talking about Bowden Francis a lot more. The media is probably surrounding Bowden Francis, how his start was, way more than they are right now. But Bowden Francis just continues to just show out for the Toronto Blue Jays and show why that I actually had a good take, believe it or not, before this Toronto Blue Jays season.
Yeah, and no, I don't think it's a hot take at all. That's the epitome of finding out how pitchers can work in the MLB and how they can move forward with their careers. Is okay, you don't have your best stuff today? Are you going to roll over and you're just going to, start pitching wherever, and because it's your best stuff isn't going to necessarily work, or are you going to go in there and battle and fight for every pitch? And that's what we saw from Bowden Francis. So really good on him today. He is credited with the loss, obviously. So,
and that's why wins and losses don't matter.
They don't matter because, again, this Toronto Blue Jays team, if they showed up with the offense from yesterday and put up 8 runs, this is a completely different ballgame. So a lot more to get into here, Carter, on sort of the game today. I have one major take, and then I want to take a look back at some of the umpire calls from a couple days ago, just because it was one of the worst sights to see ever. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I did want to give a shout out to Locked On MLB host Paul Sullivan. Sully, if you guys want to check that out, make that your second listen after you make us your first. He's covers all the big stories, so make sure you check that out. We'll be right back with some more on today's game. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. As you guys all know, we love FanDuel. There's nothing better. I mean, Carter spends 90% of his time on fantasy. I spend 90% of my time on FanDuel. Sorry about that. Light went out there. You've heard us talk about FanDuel so much, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. We're going to be completely dialed in with fantasy, with betting. We're probably going to have 9 screens going at once, so YouTube TV will really help us out. And thanks to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Carter, this is what I wanted to get into from today's game. This felt like I came out at, I don't know what time it was. I was watching part of it in my room. Then you were watching the living room. So I came out and I was like, oh, Carter's out there. I'll go watch the rest of the game with him. And I came out and I said, does this not feel like the absolute longest game in the MLB ever played? And it's just because it was boring. We go from a game like yesterday, which took a long time, or 2 days ago, I guess. And
3 hours
took a long time.
30 minutes exactly on that first game of the Texas Rangers series. And then for this game, I'll just give out the numbers. It was, I don't have the exact one for this, but it was between 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes. So you're missing about an hour and 15 minutes between these two games.
Yeah, and it just felt like, this game took so much longer because nothing was happening. I mean, it was absolutely dead. And going back to the game before, it was so exciting. Runs were being put up. You enjoyed watching. Yesterday's game just didn't feel enjoyable to watch whatsoever. There was some decent at-bats. Like, some guys had pretty good at-bats, hit some good balls. It just didn't work out. And when that happens, it does feel like the game just takes a while. And we talked about Bowden Francis and battling through counts and, guys putting up good at-bats against Bowden Francis, him still being able to work out of most of it. But it's a lot of pitches, a lot of long at-bats, and just no offense whatsoever. I mean, one swing of the bat is all the difference in this game. Just a very, very boring, long-feeling baseball game yesterday.
Yeah, it was funny, actually. We were, when you came out, I was watching the living room, obviously. You're like, has this game felt like it's taken about 7 hours? I'm like, yesterday's game took way longer. You're like, that did not feel like that whatsoever. And then, we pointed it out. Obviously, the game starting where we are at 7:05. We looked at the time. It was in the 9th inning. It was 9 o'clock. So that's where we were at. Just it's funny how just the way the game goes, the game script, you get 21 runs in the first game of the series, and then you get 2 in the second game of the series. That just goes to show that backs up my take. That I'll stand by until the day I die. Offense is way more fun to watch than defense, especially the Toronto Blue Jays lost both games. They lost the first game by 5 runs, they lost the second game by 2 runs. I feel way better about the first loss.
Yeah,
100 million times better. I love Bowden Francis, what he did. Other than that, we're at the point of the season. If it's not like Joey Lopervito, Will Wagner, like a prospect, I don't care if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is good at bats. If he doesn't produce, I mean, Like George Springer had some good at bats. It was Spencer Horwitz on the double at bat. That was a very good at bat as well, taking a lot of close pitches, battling off against a lefty as well, just making his case to be an everyday player. Yeah, but when you don't score runs, it's tough to get excited to talk about Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Like you did have like a lot of players on this team did have good at bats. Like I liked Alejandro Kirk what he did today, but you only get one hit. You go 1 for 4. You get 5 hits. You don't score a run. Again, we want small victories, but for players that have been consistent MLB caliber players, they're gonna have good at bats. You expect good at bats at the MLB level. You're not getting the production. You're not getting your team to score a run. I'm not going to take a lot of positives away from what the offense did in this game. But one thing I did want to talk about is how Cody Bradford, not Bickford, we got that one right this time. He just dominated the Blue Jays on 2 pitches. That was the weird thing for me. He threw 4 sliders, maybe 5, because that came out. I looked in the 8th inning, so he might have threw another one in the 9th. We'll say it was 5, but it was mostly 95% were fastball changeup. That's all he was throwing, and it kept the Blue Jays hitters all off balance. And he's not throwing 99, 100. He is throwing a mid-90s fastball. That just goes to show if you can locate pitches, if you can have 2 good pitches, look at Trevor Richards. You have 1 good pitch and he can be effective. If you have 2 good pitches, fastball changeup with that speed difference, that can keep a lot of hitters off balance, and that can be effective enough to make you a startable and just serviceable player in the MLB. And clearly, Bradford was more than serviceable in this game, going 7 innings, not allowing a run. Just an interesting line from the Rangers pitcher there. Gives a little bit of a hat tip, I guess you could say, from Toronto Blue Jays offense that actually has been pretty good since the All-Star break. Other than that, do you got anything else to add for this episode? Yeah, you don't get Bo Bichette. Weird lineup. Like they were talking about pinch hitting scenarios. Like the options were like Tyler Heineman, Stuart Baroa was one. It's like, I don't think these guys are pinch hitting. Like let's just run with Joey Lopervito here. Let's just run with Aston Barger. You might get the most wild swing of all time, but it's going to be a lot more fun to watch than maybe a Tyler Heineman at bat. A little bit of ricochet shot there. Love you, Tyler Heineman, but yeah, definitely want to watch Aston Barger swing the bat compared to you.
Yeah, the only other part, Carter, that I have, and this is going back to the 13-8 loss, the umpiring was horrible. And I brought it up a little bit yesterday's podcast, but I really didn't go into it. There were, in 1 inning, 3 pitches a foot above the zone being called for strikes, and it was tough to watch. And then they were missing by 4, 5, 6 inches, usually on the outside of the plate. There was a couple low ones that were called as well. It was just a really, really bad umpired game. And usually I don't like to come on here and bash umpires, but it was noticeably bad. Players on both sides are getting frustrated. And actually more so, it was helping the Jays. And I was getting frustrated watching it. So I can't imagine what the players go through when this stuff happens. And I'm not a guy, again, for the electronic strike call, AI, whatever it is. I'm not huge on that. I think that takes away from the baseball game. But then you see a game like that and you're like, okay, maybe it's not the worst idea. And yes, there's ways to go about it. I think what they did in AAA is a pretty good system. So we'll see. But that again will add time back onto baseball games. So we'll sort of see how this develops in the next few years. You know, they are supposed to be making a decision this offseason for the next coming up years in 2026, 2027. So we'll see what happens there with the electronic strike calls and stuff like that. But it won't take the umps completely out of it. It'll be where a player gets the challenge. If they lose so many challenges, they're out of them. You get like 3 a game or something like that. If you're successful, you keep it. If you're not successful, you lose it. So again, we'll have to wait and see. I think that comes out, I believe it's this offseason for the plan for 2026. So as soon as we hear about that, we'll let you guys know about that too, because it's big for guys like Davis Schneider, Ernie Clement, Spencer Horwitz, all these guys that know the strike zone pretty well. It will be a factor because those guys will be able to say, well, I'm going to take that one back. I know Davis Schneider and Spencer Horwitz are 2 guys that get beat a lot of the time on sometimes some not great calls. And that's not taking away from anything else that goes on, but it gives them an extra advantage for guys that have a good eye at the plate. Besides that, Carter, that's about all I got. Anything that you had to say on the umps?
I actually got Laz Diaz's umpire scorecard while we were going off about that. So I'm going to let you guess here. We'll start with called strike accuracy. So I'll give you the average. The average in the league is 88%.
I'm going to go 78%.
81%. So okay. not too bad. And that's where you saw it. You saw the strike calls. Like, there was a zap pop strike that might have been in a different universe than what was in that batter's box. And it got called a strike. There was one that was outside by about 4 inches. And like you said, these guys are in the MLB. They should have relatively the same strike zone day in and day out. Again, maybe an inch or two. But when you get to 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, we know 1.3 inches is a lot on this podcast. Once you get to those numbers, that's getting a little bit crazy. But other than that, you look at this scorecard. I just really wanted you to guess that one because it's not necessarily that bad. I just think the ones he missed on, it's like he was sleeping and maybe he was looking, I don't know, maybe his dad was in left field. Maybe like the dog was barking in the trees or in the mountains back there before one of the players was going to hit a moonshot, if you know that reference, bench warmers. But yeah, like you got 96 overall consistency. 94 is the average on the year. You get overall out of everything completely. You get 93 and the average on the year is 93. So again, not the worst thing necessarily, but I think just the calls that he missed, some of those strike calls were very far away from being actually in the strike zone. Again, some things happen, but when it's, again, I'm going to give umpires, again, it's your human error. You're not going to get everything right. But if it's egregious, like if you can tell on the TV that it's not even close, most likely a problem with that strike zone. Doesn't really affect the Toronto Blue Jays anyway. You'd think that with him expanding the strike zone, you'd get less hits, but it was a hit parade.
Yeah.
Both teams were just scoring a million runs, and that's pretty much what happened throughout the game. But just quick, I'm going to give my take on like the electric strikes or whatever it is. I like the AAA stuff. I like what they're doing. A lot of the players from AAA, like Barger, got these guys coming up, Ernie Clement, all these guys say that they love the strikes on the challenge system. Don't want to go fully automated. I do like the human error aspect in that game. Again, as long as it's not a foot outside the strike zone, you get the odd pitch. It goes one way, it goes the other way. You get some of these ejections. You get entertainment. I like entertaining things in the game of baseball. So you get some of those bad calls. Sometimes it does call for a fun game of baseball to watch. That's kind of where I'm at with that. We'll see what happens throughout the next couple of seasons. Probably won't be a thing to implement next season, as you said. More so a project for 2026. Again, the MLB is not necessarily focused on that at this point. They got the playoffs ahead of them. Something that we're talking about right now because we have nothing ahead. We got 10 games of baseball. I think that's where we're at now. Yeah, I'm going to cherish every single one. I know you are as well because Toronto Blue Jays baseball, no matter what, again, we love when they play but good. We love when they are actually a good baseball team, but we're going to be watching no matter what, day in and day out. Want to say thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, subscriptions, everything recently has been appreciated, especially when we're kind of in this dead zone that is Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Can't really talk about the off season because we're right there. We're getting close to that point. Can't talk about playoffs. Can't talk about anything else but this season because there's not too much to talk about at this point other than the prospects. We do appreciate you guys sticking along for the ride. Braden, you got anything else to add about this first 2 games about Toronto Blue Jays baseball or just life in general? You got anything going on?
No, not really. Working, just doing me, doing the podcast. A lot of fun out here. Besides that, I don't know. There's nothing. I mean, we're at the end of the year, like you said. So let's just get through it. We'll get to the off season and hope for an exciting off season. Tune in for tomorrow's episode, the Friday edition of Locked On Blue Jays. And
Kevin Gausman bump day.
Yeah, we'll see what he can bring to the mound. As always, thanks a bunch. Make sure after making us your first listen, make sure you go make Locked On MLB. Host Paul Sullivan, Sully. Make sure you go make them your second listen every day. And they've got all the big storylines in the MLB going into the playoffs. So, again, talk to you guys tomorrow.